Okay, guys, ready for our person to come back on here? Then we will finish the show.
Congrats on making it to Friday Day. $1.6 billion for copying what...
Viacom. I say, guys, we're not going to go until my friend Jage gets back on here. Because I don't want to get mad at me saying, hey, you didn't finish me. Well, I'm going to finish it right now, guys. And if he doesn't get on here within a second, I'm going to just forget about him and just do it without him. You know what? I'm going to do it without him. He had a chance to come on here. I warned him, so I'm going to give him a couple seconds so he doesn't get back on here. And let's finish it now. Who cares?
Copying his character Bob Spongy. After understanding the situation, he went to
Viacom, who owns CBS. Viacom, they own a lot of stuff. They own a lot of things. Viacom owns a lot of companies. Okay. Okay, guys. Since that's all taken care of, okay, guys, we're going to start watching it now.
Viacom in court and demanded $1.6 billion for copying what he made and bringing the franchise around to the world. But why exactly did he think that SpongeBob was a copy of Bob Spongy? Well, the obvious reason is because of the similar name and general appearance of being a talking sponge. Not only that, but he mentioned a DVD going by the name Sponge for Hire, which was the same name listed on the comic that he shared with people. He also talked about how both his character and SpongeBob were unemployed at the time, which connects them even further. All of these small connections were coming together, and so he believed this was copying his comic. His attempt at suing Viacom didn't end how he hoped, though. There were two pretty big reasons why he couldn't win the lawsuit. For one, because Bob Spongy seems like a generic talking sponge that didn't have too many unique characteristics, especially if we compare him to the beloved animated character that would be revealed to the world in the 90s. Two, because the odds of anyone from the SpongeBob crew ever coming face-to-face with this character is incredibly low. Keep in mind that Walker shared his comic to a few parts in Northern California, but it was mainly local. Considering Bob Spongy never made major headlines nationwide, it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense that Steven Hillenburg would hear about this idea and copy it. Also, Walker's argument about the two being unemployed made no sense. SpongeBob literally gets a job in the very first episode of the series, and he hasn't stopped working at the Krusty Krab ever since. Now, okay, if there's any doubts with who the original creator of SpongeBob is, it's important to understand one of Hillenburg's earlier creations.
80s.
In the 80s, he made this special comic book called The Intertidal Zone. He basically drew it to help explain the life of underwater organisms in an entertaining way, and that was understandable because he loved teaching marine biology. In 1989, he came up with this character, a talking sponge with sunglasses known as Bob the Sponge. He would develop as the years continued.
So technically, he's right.
But what we need to realize here is the actual year. Yeah, Hillenburg's seeds for the character were planted all the way back in 89, while Walker claims he made his comics in the very early 90s. There's a time difference here, and the one who brought their creation into the world first was Hillenburg, obviously. But at the end of the day, this entire lawsuit seemed to be filled with coincidences that don't really prove anything. Sure, SpongeBob has a similar name to Bob the Spongy, but the actual circumstances of each character are completely different from each other. This case never went anywhere meaningful. What are your thoughts on the lawsuit? There's not a lot
Who
of
really
information
gives a
online,
care?
so is this the first time you've heard about it? Let's talk in the comments.
It sounds like a load of garbage. I really wouldn't care.
But anyway, that's all for this video. Subscribe for more awesome cartoon videos. Give a thumbs up and comment below.
Who really cares? Because, right? Who really gives a care, right, guys? It's just dumb. Well, that was weird, though, but this seems like a waste of money and a waste of time about something that no one really cares about. Yeah, Johnny saw it. That's just, I think, John, I think that's just a waste of time. That's a waste of money. Because this here. What does Viacom own? Let's see here. Let's see here. What does Viacom own? This here. Viacom owns Nickelodeon, CBS, Paramount. It's here. Viacom owns Paramount. They own that. They own Nickelodeon. They own MTV. They own part of CBS. They also own a few other things too. They also own. So why piss off Viacom? Seriously, huh? Viacom's one of the biggest. Is a big company that no one messes with, especially not with a V. Viacom also owns part of PBS. All I know, they also own part of PBS. Why you don't piss off PBS? Because that's just wrong. So yeah, guys, that's just weird. Who pisses off PBS? Seriously, who would piss off Viacom? What is with Alistair?
Any other words, sir?
Well, I don't play basketball, but I can kill a man with a toothpick.
Okay, yeah, got it. We'll see about that. Connect. Last one, John, for you. Then I'm gonna put someone else on.
Tree, come here, Tree. Oh, you're such a spotty boy. You're such a spotty boy. Oh.
I don't think John knows.
Switch now and get a Verizon Stream TV on us. This is
I don't think
unlimited
so.
calling.
I'll stick with my Comcom.
Well, here we are at the end of the decade. Despite how existentially terrifying it is to realize that an entire decade of your life is over, it's important to realize the most important thing.
Decades of my life's over.
Decade for animation. Seriously, from 2010 onwards, we've seen some of the greatest cartoons ever made, I would say, of all time. The 2010
see
saw
about
a
that.
rise of darker cartoons. Cartoons that weren't afraid to tell a deeper story. And in turn, we were left with one of the greatest decades in animation. So today, let's give credit where credit is due. Guys, I'm Nemo, and I'm joined with my
He's alright.
and my name is Tom. As we attempt to count down the top 25 cartoons of the past decade. This is in no
We'll see.
particular order, okay? We're not saying any show's better or worse. Because
I
it's
didn't like this already, John, but okay.
We are just saying out of all the cartoons that aired this
Oh,
decade,
I need to start doing
these
Digimon
are the
again.
top 25. So, without further ado, let's get
I
started.
need to like doing Digimon again. I'll do it after this, maybe, or
So
tomorrow.
what if you took Phineas and Ferb, but instead of Phineas and Ferb, you follow a story about a kid who sounds like Weird Al, has really bad luck, but a really positive attitude.
Never seen it.
Then you have Milo Murphy's Law, which I say
Never
because
seen
not
it.
only is this show created by Dan and Swampy, the creators of Phineas and Ferb, resulting in the show having a very similar writing style and sense of humor, but it also exists in the same universe as Phineas and Ferb.
Danville?
And I feel that as a result, they're
I'll
more
stick with Phineas
experienced
and Ferb.
refined, offering
Phineas and Ferb is
more
good, but
potential
never seen
with
Murphy's
this show
Law.
that's yet to be fully realized. Milo Murphy's Law was coming into a world with different expectations.
Oh, by the way, guess what I found? Guess what, guys? Before I tell you guys, before I forget, guys, I forgot to tell you guys something. True or false? Oh wait, no, I was gonna say that. True or false? One of the characters that played Phineas and Ferb had 3 jobs at one time. True or false? True or false? The person who played Jeremy had 3 jobs at one time. True or false? Is that okay? Question. Do you know who played the voice of Jeremy? Yes or no? Because I know who played the voice of Jeremy. He had 3 jobs at once, which is kind of weird. Person the voice of Jeremy had like 3 jobs at one time. Boy, was he busy. He had 3 Disney shows at one time. So that had to be hard on the I think he had 3 shows to do at one time. So think that would be kind of hard to do, right? What am I talking about? If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll tell you guys later, because you'll be surprised to figure out who the voice of Jeremy is. Because I can't pronounce his name. I can't think of who it is, but you'll be surprised.
there would be more structure, more continuity, more focus on narrative.
Oh,
and
yeah.
through that, Milo Murphy's Law was offering a modern story from the same universe
Huh.
as Phineas and Ferb, which is awesome. As of right now,
That makes
after
sense.
only a few seasons,
Makes sense.
it seems like the life cycle of Milo Murphy's Law might be over, when I honestly believe
Yeah, he's here. What did the person that Jeremy was doing at the time? Oh, yeah, see here. He was doing Hannah Montana. Don't want to know how I know. Pair of Kings. Don't want to know. And Phineas and Ferb all at the same time. How is that possible? I know that. Yes, the person who was doing the voice of Jeremy was doing Hannah Montana, Pair of Kings, and Phineas and Ferb all at the same time. The same person was doing all threes at the same time. So that should knock it down. And it was not Doc Shaw. It was someone else. I forget who it was, though.
it's a lot more steam left and a lot more potential as far as the story goes. It's done a lot in the time it's had, creating characters, relationships, and building up to high-stakes adventures, and who's to say they couldn't do it again? Just like Dan and Swampy said in that rap song. I honestly think
What
Tom
the
and
hell?
Marvel would be capable of surpassing Phineas and Ferb, but unfortunately, we probably won't get to see that. It wouldn't be the only show that's ended
Perry?
abruptly and had a lot more to offer, but no matter
Perry?
what, Milo Murphy's Law was definitely a highlight in the last decade of animation.
Never seen it. 24.
When it comes to unique and original
Never seen
animation,
it.
no one takes more risks than Netflix. And that is totally the case with Love, Death, and
Netflix,
Robots.
I'm neutral
I
on.
remember first hearing about this series, and I wasn't even remotely excited for it. It just seemed kind of average. And even watching the very first episode, I'm like, okay, well, this isn't anything special. But Love, Death, and Robots is something that deserves to be watched in its entirety, because it is the definition of a mixed bag. If I were to describe Love, Death, and Robots, I would say that it is just ultimately
Never seen
a
it.
love letter to animation as a genre. It's an anthology
I
series,
should move
meaning
my
each
bag,
and every
but
episode
nah,
is a
I don't
different
know what it
story,
is.
a different world, a different character. But it also means that every episode is a uniquely different animation style.
can move
And this
my
is
bed
where
over
Love, Death, and
there.
Robots truly shines through. Every
And this-
episode completely
I know what
exists
it
on
is.
its own,
I want my
independent
bed
of
right
each other
here,
in
like
the
where it is,
absolute
next to the
best
bookshelf
way. You
and
have
next to the
no
airplane
idea
there.
what you're gonna get every time you watch an episode of Love, Death, and
Never
Robots.
seen it.
Episodes like The Witness are claustrophobic and gritty and dark, but also serene and beautiful. Other episodes
seen
might
it.
be lighthearted adventures about farmers and mech suits fighting aliens. Other episodes like Zima Blue are
Never
beautiful,
seen it.
introspective art pieces telling us stories you didn't even know you wanted to hear. My point is, Love, Death, and Robots is all over the place in the best way. And because of Netflix, it's allowed to be as experimental and crazy as it wants. Some episodes are long, while
Okay.
other episodes are just a few minutes. There's no set time length, there's no set anything. It's animation completely unhinged, and it's amazing. Love, Death, and Robots just encapsulates everything that's great about animation right now, and everything that animation is capable of in this moment in time. But it's also a representation of where animation is going into the next
Oh.
century and where it could go. We finally exist in a world where
Almost dead.
something like Love, Death, and Robots, an experimental animated anthology series, is allowed to thrive and exist. And with the news of it being
Woo.
confirmed for a second season, I'm just more than excited to see where this goes.
Never
Love, Death,
seen
and
it.
Robots is something that couldn't have existed
heard of it.
5 years ago, 10 years ago, but here we are, and it's amazing. That's why it's definitely worth a watch.
Never heard of it. And this will always charge with the charger.
Miraculously, Bug and Cat Noir is one of those shows that I think is really stupid, but I just
That's an old
can't
show.
stop watching it.
That's on
Despite
TV
having
still.
threads of continuity, the show doesn't
But
have
if
much
you don't
of a
have Comcast,
coherent
you can't-
overarching plot, and the way that episodes are released,
This channel's still in the air, guys, and I know what channel it's on. If you do not have Comcast, you can't get this channel. Just leave it at that. You don't have Comcast, you can't get this channel. It's a Comcast channel, and it's usually this. And there are some old Cartoon Network show is on there, and a Russian TV show is on there, which I don't like. I mean, it's on this. This show is on a channel I know of. It's this and some other karate stuff. Even Waldo's on the show. Yes, Waldo's on the show on this channel, guys. Waldo has his own TV show on this channel. I have not watched it, and Waldo even has a voice, which is surprising. I thought Waldo wouldn't have a voice, but yeah, Waldo has a voice, which is surprising.
can make it really difficult to keep up with it. But they found a simple formula that can be twisted and recontextualized in so many ways that you can't help but stay invested. And the moments where the writing needs to be strong, it usually delivers. Of course, there are a lot of criticisms you can bring up against the show, but the draws and substance of the show is solid. It has an X factor and provides something conceptually that no other story does, or at least no other story executes this well. That concept being the dynamic between the main character and her co-star and their hero identities versus their secret identities. Marinette is Ladybug, who Cat Noir is in love with, and Cat Noir is Adrian, who Marinette is in love with. But they don't know each other's secret identities, despite the fact that it's really, really obvious, so they end up thirsting after each other without even realizing it. The whole concept of the show is so stupid, but so well executed that it pulls you in. The idea of two characters who interact with each other constantly being madly in love, but not...
It's kind of like that. It's kind of like that old Batman episode that had 3 Batlet girls. It's confusing. It's like that one episode of Batman I used to watch. As well, old episode of Batman I watched had 3 women that plays Bat Lady at one time. That's screwy as hell. The only way you can tell who the different was in each episode, the only way you can tell who each person was differently is by the lipstick. Each one different word, different color lipstick. That's the only way you can tell who was who. And I could not believe who one of the people were. Because that person's been dead for years.
For such a compelling experience, and
that person's been dead for years now.
Really, what it is they managed to take fan fiction elements and integrate them into a cartoon in a way that works. So even if fan fiction isn't your thing, it's just all the drama and PS from that in a more universal medium and with more professional presentation.
What the hell?
Also, the show just makes me happy to watch. It's
pure
and simple and knows when to bring it. It's not extremely ambitious, but it does what it does and does it well.
22. Double 2.
The 2010s kicked off with one of the strongest action adventure shows I've ever laid my eyes on. Symbionic Titan. And I think a lot
That's
of that
80s.
The fact that despite being an action cartoon,
That was on the, it came out on the,
always did his best
look
to
at a
make
reboot.
sure the focus of the show
Look at some
were
from the
the
1980s
characters.
came out.
Lance, Alana, and Octus are one of the best trios.
Late
for
80s,
Disney
early 90s
animation.
came out.
No room for debate. Over the short-lived 20-episode run, you see these war refugees who have to pretend to be a family develop into an actual family who depend on each other for strength, guidance, and wisdom. The high school setting is used to its full advantage, turning all the tropes and cliches on its head with a very fun and surprisingly active recurring cast. The action is always sick, whether if it's in a giant robot dealing with the kaiju of the week or hand-to-hand combat primarily with plants. Symbionic Titan deserves more, and I'm going to keep this entry short because now that the series is available for streaming on Netflix, I want to dedicate a full-length video on why we need to bring it back. Hold this to me. There's a reason this show keeps getting referenced in newer Cartoon Network properties. If you need to refresh yourself or never seen it before, if you live in the USA, drop everything except this video and consume it on Netflix.
I don't got Netflix.
Episodes that will leave you wanting more.
Sorry. Oh, I had Netflix. If I did have Netflix, I'd be watching only one thing, like Beastars, and that's it.
The Looney Tunes show is one I
that sucks.
I had to put on this list.
That show
I'm not
sucked.
sure a lot of people have even seen. To most people, I wouldn't
they
be
screwed
surprised
it up.
This is just like a vague memory. Like, oh yeah, I remember that was like on Cartoon Network in like 2011. But no, I'm here. I'm coming here. I'm giving this show all the praise it deserves. The Looney Tunes show is one of the greatest cartoons to air in the last decade for sure. Guess this
when he was younger.
Take the Looney Tunes characters and make it Seinfeld. That's literally it. It's just a sitcom starring the Looney Tunes characters, and that's why it's beautiful.
Made it
they
like
traded
crap.
in slapstick humor for real-life situations.
Drinking
Gone
Blue.
are the days of falling anvils. Instead, you get to watch Bugs Bunny try to install a shelf for 22 minutes, and it is glorious. Bugs and Daffy are roommates in this weird universe.
Oh,
Bugs
shoot.
is living off of the royalty money from this carrot chopper kitchen invention that he made like years ago. So he's living the classic sitcom scenario of a house that's way too nice and that he probably shouldn't be able to afford. And yet, basically just follows him and Daffy getting into shenanigans. And a lot of people actually harped on this show for how they portrayed the Looney Tunes characters.
Really
I think
crap.
this is one of the greatest adaptations of the Looney Tunes characters. Bugs has this sort of sarcastic dryness to him that's carried over into every situation. The way I could describe it is he just doesn't give a f*** in like the best way. And Daffy is
screwed up
classically
Lola.
self-absorbed. self-absorbed, but in a way that completely works and doesn't come off as like stereotypical. In fact, he still manages to be lovable. It's a pretty great dynamic because Bug is able to just put up with a lot of what Daffy does, but he's not afraid to draw the line. Like I keep saying, it's just a classic sitcom dynamic that works in every way. My absolute favorite part of the Looney Tunes show, and the part that's an absolute trip, is just seeing how they fit all of the other Looney Tunes characters into a real-world dynamic. Speedy Gonzales owns a popular sports bar. Porky Pig, at some points, like owns a catering company. It handles adult themes in a way that's not overtly raunchy. In fact, it just seems to kind of tackle the monotony of adult life. But there's just something about Bugs on an awkward date with Lola in a grocery
Lola's
store that makes
pissed.
me really
Lola.
appreciate this show for being
They
so
screwed
out
Lola
there.
off.
I mean, honestly, this was like a huge risk to make, and on paper it sounds weird, but I appreciate it for how bizarre it is. And
Lola
how
is
it's
screwed
trying
up.
to be something different. If I have any complaints about the Looney Tunes show,
Lola, they made look like a jerk. They made Lola look like a jerk. Which, according to my records, Lola is the youngest Looney Tunes character around. You don't see the oldest one anymore. The oldest one, you don't see the oldest Looney Tunes character anymore, do ya? They didn't put him in this one. There's actually a Looney Tunes character pretty old, older than Mickey Mouse. Bosco. No one knows who Bosco is anymore. No one doesn't even know who Bosco is. Bosco came out before Bugs Bunny did, back in the 30s. Wait, no, back in the 20s, actually. Bosco's been around since the 20s. And no one knows who Bosco is anymore.
I could do without the weird musical segments that they had. They also had some like Roadrunner CGI cartoons that I always skipped. They weren't really that bad, they weren't for me. Although I'm not sure who else remembers this fever dream of a music video where Elmer Fudd basically makes love to a grilled cheese sandwich
That's
for
stupid.
like 4 minutes. It's bizarre. Yeah, the Looney Tunes show is one of the most
What
slept on
the
cartoons
hell?
of the decade. Definitely, I feel like this
Why
is
they
spot
screw
on
up
this
Elmer
list. If
Fudd?
you have not seen it, you definitely
It's
should check
rabbit
it out.
season. Duck season. That just sounds wrong. Episode number 20.
What if I told you that there was a series with 0 dialogue and 5 episodes that managed to say more than a lot of shows with dialogue and multiple seasons? That's exactly what Gendy Tartakovsky managed to pull off with Primal. Which, if anyone could do this, it would be Gendy, because he's proven time and time again that he is one of, if not the best in the game when it comes to visual storytelling and action and animation, all of which he put to good use in Primal, which follows a caveman named Spear who befriends a T-Rex named Fang after both lose their families to a pack of rogue dinosaurs. Surprisingly, being a show that was very heavily celebrated for being unapologetically violent and masculine and just being manly, there's actually a pretty heavy focus on the consequences of violence. It's almost a commentary on how what we consider traditionally masculine and the old-fashioned expectations we hold to men are actually pretty damaging and unhealthy. The way they portray PTSD manifesting and the way that being regularly exposed to violence and killing affects the character's mental health. It wasn't just a story about the action and violence that takes place in the world.
This
There
sounds
was an
stupid.
exploration of everything around that as well, looking at the human psyche and how that's affected by loss and such graphically traumatic experiences. Which again, this is done with no dialogue, just visuals. Yet it's one of the most emotional and raw stories
silent
I've ever
cartoon.
seen, and that's something that's hard to accomplish to this degree outside of the world of animation.
19.
We Bear Bears is a great example of a show
That's
that
alright.
doesn't need a super
We Bear
engaging
Bears
plot
is a
to be
neutral.
great, because We Bear Bears is a wholesome, funny show about bears trying to understand society. But there's also this dynamic where they've been assimilated and raised in a human society with human conventions to the point where being just bears isn't natural for them. They use human technology and eat human food and have adopted human culture as their own, finding an identity through it, but they're also
Okay.
bears. Though there isn't an overarching story, the show does go into the past of the bears and try to provide context to their relationships, personality quirks, just helping you understand the characters and what makes them who they are. We Bear Bears is very character driven. The world feels alive because of the attention in putting people into
that
that
Tulip?
world, from the bears to minor supporting characters.
What is
even to the
Tulip doing in
background
We Bear
characters.
Bears?
One of the coolest things about this show is the background characters are so diverse and well designed, which is a really nice touch. Like, you could just make background characters that are palette swaps of Jane and John Doe, or you could design characters where you can get a hint of what type of person they are, even if they have no lines. Because drawing is writing. Image tells a story, and the visuals here
Is that
tell the
Tulip?
audience a lot about the world. It manages to capture a sense of reality through the attention to detail, while also adding positive and upbeat vibes with the show's lighthearted tone. We Bear Bears isn't revolutionary or jaw-dropping, but it delivers. It's entertaining, it's charming, and it can even be emotional at times. It's just a solid show that makes you happy, and sometimes that's all you need from a cartoon.
Final Space is one of the most important
Never
cartoons
seen
to
it.
come out in this decade. The show itself is a sprawling space epic filled with adventure, humor, and heart from the genius mind of Olin Rogers, who had his start on YouTube and humbly rose the ranks all the way to getting his own TV show. In fact, it's one of the most inspiring stories in animation, and something I'd never seen happen before or since. Olin put all of his heart and effort into an incredible pilot. The pilot got seen by Conan O'Brien, cut to the show being picked up by TBS, and now being successfully on its second season, going on a third. It's an incredible story and shows, and anybody can have their adventure told if they try hard enough, and Olin is such a hardworking, creative individual. It really comes off in the show. Another incredible thing about Final Space is its growth. The show that follows the misadventures of Gary and the rest of his crew as he travels through space, dealing with foes, and trying to solve the mystery of what Final Space is, changed a lot from Season 1 and Season 2. And that's because Olin actually listened to a lot of the criticisms with Season 1. He took those criticisms and he made Season 2 even better. In fact, Season 2 is almost an entirely different show for all of the right reasons. It's so hard for me to give you a synopsis about what Final Space is about because it's always changing. It's always telling this incredible story. There's all these overarching plots and themes. Characters are developing, coming in and leaving in different ways. It's just a ride from start to finish, and it's definitely worth a watch. If you want a show that will make you laugh and cry and also be on the edge of your seat, Final Space is definitely worth a watch.
Alright, so we actually forgot one slot when initially scripting this, and I can't choose between these two shows, so they're just going to share the same slot. Amphibia is underrated because I already know it's going to be unfairly overlooked for the Owl House due to the timing of Disney scheduling in 2019 versus the return of weekly premieres are rolling out in 2020. Amphibia follows Anne, a girl peer-pressured into stealing a magic box by her two jerk friends, and wind up in a magical world populated by anthropomorphic frogs. Alex Jones would shit himself. What makes Amphibia such a palate cleanser to me is that despite presenting itself as an innately story-driven show, the team decided to use that knowledge to take their time with the first season and properly set up characters over conflict. And there are a lot of characters, for the better, each providing something new for the show and generally lend more to the comedic elements of the show. A friend of mine, Wasp Ranger, aka It's Only Magic on YouTube, describes the show as fantasy Simpsons done right, and I think that's the perfect forward blurb. The writing and jokes are on part of early Simpsons, and definitely, surprise, surprise, Gravity Falls. Because we become so intimate with the characters that it's hard not to care about what Anne is dealing with and how her predicaments affect the entire town. Look, don't play games, just watch.
Back in a minute, guys. Okay, back in a second, John. Wow, I'm staying on though. Maya. Oof, 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 oof. Ah, da 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 da. What the heck are you doing, Gray? Making weed? What are you doing, Gray? Making weed or something? Oh my. Oh my Maya. After the song, John, I'm gonna be on later on tonight.
The entire first season is on Disney Plus. I can see it quickly ascending to God status among other story cartoons in 2020. So get on the hype train before it becomes a bit too crowded. On the other hand, there's Craig of the Creek, which started out something referred to as Ed and Eddie mixed with Codename Kids Next Door.
No way.
The show itself caught fans out on for that comparison. But God, now that it's 2 seasons in, that comparison never did it any justice. Craig of the Creek doesn't care if it's grounded in reality.
Jawbreakers, Double D! Which actually got Jawbreakers.
And find a way to justify it later. Using what they learned from their time as head writers on Steven Universe, creators Matt Burnett and Ben Levin alongside their team provide
I actually got John a Jawbreaker. You need a hammer.
Cartoon. Stories that remind us of the wonders of childhood, the importance of family, and sour candy eating contests, people. Craig of the Creek feels like a
Jawbreaker!
Not every kid is
Jawbreaker!
but rather just a human being, giving perspective and representation for all different walks of life. I'm happy this is a flagship IP for a new generation.
Jawbreakers!
And the bigger story with the King of the Other Side get me so excited to see what's next. Craig of the Creek is a gift. Every episode flies by while making the most out of 11 minutes, and it's a bit comforting knowing that the show could go on for a very long time.
Oh, the crap going on? I'm surprised even still, even if it's on there, though, the crap right now going on in the world
There
right
have
now.
been countless Scooby-Doo
since the
great
60s.
brands and reimaginings. But guys, Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated is in a league of its own.
Never
truly.
seen it.
I know What's New Scooby-Doo is a treasure, and we're all lucky to have it. But guys, Mystery Inc., I would go out on a limb and say is the greatest Scooby-Doo series of all time.
Scooby-Doo's
It is
around
the
since
quintessential
1970,
Scooby-Doo series. It is a
1969.
meta take on the entire Scooby-Doo story, and it does everything right in a different way. It's beautiful. From the jump, from the very first episode,
What's
Scooby-Doo
new,
Mystery Inc. makes
Scooby-Doo?
itself clear that it is a different interpretation of Scooby-Doo. It's sarcastic. It's allowing
Well,
itself
it's
to
better
get dark.
than,
It's taking a look at the gang
Be
in
Cool,
a
which
realistic
sucks.
light, as apparent by the fact that literally in episode 1 they are arrested for solving a crime. Gone are the days of simplistic villains that turn out to just be the banker from down the road. Scooby-Doo Mystery Inc. gives you all of the Scooby-Doo stuff that you love and expect, but serves it up in a
Little
realistic
van
way
went
with
through
an
hell, I
incredible
bet.
mystery and overarching plot that will keep you on the edge of your seat the entire time. A lot of people may have had gripes with the love subplots they had in the show, and honestly I see that there. It's kind of the show's weaker point, but no other Scooby-Doo interpretation has been able to capture what makes Scooby-Doo so great, while also giving it to us in an incredibly new way. It almost makes fun of Scooby-Doo in the fact that we're all in on the joke and we all love it regardless. Take Fred's almost comical obsession with traps. It's a great running gag that just honestly is something we've all been thinking the entire time, so yeah, this works. Another incredible aspect is that it showed the relationship of these mystery-solving teams with their parents, which solved the long-ass Scooby-Doo question as how are they just affording to do this constant road trip to every mystery in America? Where are their parents? Well, they're here in this series, and they're some of the best parts of the show. There's some incredible drama with Freddy's dad being the mayor, and like I said, as the series
Freddy's
goes
dad
on,
being
it
the
gets
mayor.
a lot trippier. The show had some serious changes and development over time, all culminating in one of the biggest and darkest
Wow.
endings of any Scooby-Doo series ever. And may I also point out, the fact that it had an ending is absolutely crucial. Mystery Inc. set out to tell a story, and it completed that story. It, told what it wanted to tell, and then it ended naturally. It was perfect. In a world where Scooby-Doo exists in this weird one-off limbo land, and for being a franchise that's so incredibly repetitive, Mystery Inc. is a breath of fresh air and just the greatest thing Scooby-Doo that's come out in such a long time. I'm glad I got to tell its story, and it's actually on Netflix right now. If you want to watch it, please do. If you haven't,
It's on
you will
Netflix?
not regret a single
What's a
episode.
prize? They'll be on Max. Okay, I just have to get off this soon because I have to watch the sets there.
The 2010s were full of reboots, many of which faced a lot of backlash. But there's one reboot that did an amazing job at silencing the critics and coming in hard with a transformation of an old show
Scrooge.
that proved that reboots can be really great if there's a passion to use that property to tell a great new story. They can expand on the foundation of the source material to create something new and innovative, which is
Scrooge.
exactly what DuckTales did, adding depth to the characters, telling an overarching story, and bringing in new elements and questions to the show to make everything feel like it meant more. From what I've seen of the original, it was always pretty one note. They go on
Scrooge on there.
adventures, and that's about it. Just kind of your average after-school Saturday morning bit of action, bit of adventure type of formula, which definitely worked for the time period. But here, the adventures are only a small part of the plot. There's so much more going on between the characters and a deeper exploration on why they go on adventures in the first place, or what they want from life beyond these adventures, some of the family skeletons in the closet, and the tension that comes about as a result. Background on who the characters are, what they're like, and what motivates
Scrooge.
them, which creates an emotional connection between the audience and the text that just flat out wasn't present in the source material. I don't know how a diehard DuckTales fan could watch this show and not appreciate how much more they do for the characters and the property as a whole. There are so many cartoons I grew up watching that followed a similar blueprint to the original DuckTales, and if someone came along and recalled the world and story of those cartoons like this reboot does for DuckTales, then I would be ecstatic. But that being said, I don't think there are many fans that feel anything but love for this reboot.
I don't know. I've never seen DuckTales original or the new one, so I wouldn't know.
Legend of Korra had some very big shoes to fill following The Last Airbender, which, if it aired this decade, would probably be at the top of our list. But even though Korra
Aang was
didn't
better.
reach the same level as its predecessor, doesn't mean that it's not very good. One of the things that stands out to me, especially with the creative new ways that bending is used, I feel like the action is just on another level in Legend of Korra, possibly better than Last Airbender. I was making a Korra video very recently, and I kept getting distracted as I was editing by how jaw-droppingly creative some of the offense is, and the direction only amplifies that, which would make sense that a more technical element of the show would be better in the sequel series, as the writing might go a bit downhill. At the very least, we do get some fan service as fans of the original series, seeing a glimpse of what happened to Team Avatar and seeing how the next generation turned out for their children and grandchildren, which all have their own personalities, by the way. When I think Tenzin, I don't think, oh, yeah, that's
Aang.
Katara's son. Nah, that's Tenzin.
Aang.
He's his own character with his
Aang's
own
dead,
charm and appeal. Same
right?
thing with Boomy. Kaya, Lin, Suyin,
They could be over
I don't
100 years
even
old.
consider the fact that
Zach?
they're descendants of the
Hi,
original
Z, what's up?
cast because they have their own personalities that
I'll see you
also
later.
manage to be similar enough. It's not that far-fetched to believe that these are descendants of the original cast. I think the only exception to this is probably Zuko's grandson Iroh, but that's mainly because Dante Bosco is voicing him, so it's almost impossible to separate the two like that. But even then, that's not necessarily a bad thing because sometimes you look at
Airplanes.
people's kids and you're like, that's literally you. That's a mini you. But
So
as
this is
I've
the
made clear
1900s.
recently, I really like Korra's character arc, and even if the beats along that journey weren't always executed in the best way, I always really enjoyed how she got from point A to point B. Which, if you want to hear me talk about that more in depth, go watch the video I made about it. Yeah, that's right, I'm gonna plug my video in top 25. Who's gonna stop me?
You're on the channel, so you won't have to.
911, there's been a murder. A Netflix original got apparently canceled after one season. Oh, you're a bit backed up with actual problems and other Netflix originals having an
What
untimely
the
death.
fuck is this?
This bit is going nowhere. Tuca and Birdie was robbed of so much. This show really connected me in a way I didn't expect. I expected BoJack through the lens of a woman, but I got a great contrast instead.
That sounds
A
stupid.
show that is through that lens, but focuses on the importance of a support system. It's nothing like BoJack, and it's all for the better. It's a visual delight, redefining what it means to get weird, because weird is just normal for the show. But that weirdness and rapid-fire comedy never undermines the gravity of serious situations. There's a certain episode with a certain backstory reveal. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. The way it was built up to and presented affected me in a way I never expected it to. A way no show touched me before. It was a wonderful show to connect with my female friends over, and I even gained a better understanding of being a woman in America. Something that I obviously won't ever be able to fully experience and understand because, hey, I'm a dude. Tuca and Birdie may be gone way too soon, but its
Never seen
memory
it.
will live on for decades to come. It's the
Sounds
new Mission
dumb.
Hill to me, and I'll
Sounds like-
stand by that weird comparison.
Oh, okay. John, it's taking over an hour.
Okay, y'all, I'm back to hype up this show with every fiber of my being because Shira and the Princesses of Power is
Okay.
honestly my personal favorite show of the decade. The characters.
Okay, you know what, John? I'm done with this, John. This is over an hour, John. I'm done, John. I'll talk to you guys. I'll tell you later, guys. Bye. I gotta go, John. I gotta do some bye.
In so many ways, Shira is a representation of how our